All right, I believe we are live. If people could please put into the chat whether they can hear us and see us appropriately. JT, do you want to say something really quickly? Just give a quick hey.
Yeah. Hey,
Oh,
good to be here. Great to start off this event like this.
okay, perfect. So people put into the live chat, please, that this is working. I believe it should be, but we're going to continue in a second. So we are here to introduce the Real Archaeology Festival. And okay, people can hear us and see us. Excellent. So we are here to
Awesome.
introduce the Real Archaeology Festival, and it's a real pleasure to be here. This is going to really rock. We have something like 60 creators joining us on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and blogs and what am I missing? Twitter, and I don't even know what else. It's really
Twitter,
phenomenal.
podcast, Archaeology
Podcasts.
Podcast
Yeah.
Network, the blogs, everything. So we're kind of hitting, all the different kind of content and media outlets there are, all at once with, with real archaeology.
Yeah, exactly. And we've been highlighted in a number of different Substacks and a few newspapers and magazines. And so we're hoping that people will come out and check out all that's available online for real archaeology. And this is not all that's available. Look, I've discovered new archaeology channels just in the last couple weeks of people wanting to join. There's so many more out there, and I think one of the goals of those of us on the organization team, which includes JT, JT. This is JT Lewis, by the way. He is a PhD candidate at Oklahoma University, right?
University of Oklahoma. Yeah.
University of Oklahoma, yeah. And he studies ancient Americas and lithic technology, and we'll get into some of that later on. But also on the organization team is Frederick Trussoham, and I hope I'm saying that right, of Digging Up Ancient Aliens. That's his YouTube channel, his blog, and his podcast. And I think his podcast is affiliated with the Archaeology Podcast Network. We've also had Laura Tabone. I hope I'm pronouncing her name right. I should have asked everybody how to pronounce their names beforehand. Sorry, Laura. Sorry, Frederick. So Frederick designed the website. Laura has done a bunch of the scheduling and organizational work behind it. And then we also had Dan Fallu, who's an archaeologist. He doesn't have... Oh, Laura, by the way, is the genius behind Megalith Hunter on YouTube. Megalith Hunter. So digging... Let's put this in the chat. Digging Up Ancient Aliens is Frederick. And Megalith Hunter is Laura. And then the last members of our organization team include Dan Fallu. He's done a lot of the graphic design for us, and he's a geoarchaeologist. He doesn't have a YouTube. I think his goal was to start doing YouTube, and then he just started a new job, so he's really busy. But he was able to help us do some graphics. Kristen Boyle from the Archaeology Podcast Network, helping us get in a variety of podcasts and also helping out with some IT issues. And then a few other people behind the scenes as well who have been very, very helpful, different YouTubers and podcasters. And so we're really appreciative to have a good team together. And that's
Yeah.
really key because the entire goal here is to develop this collaborative ecosystem of people that promote real archaeology on the internet. That was kind of where this genesis of idea came from. Some of my students are here. Hey, Davies Arts, I think I saw you in the one with Chris Stringer. And so, look, it's so easy to find fake archaeology. And
Yeah.
some of this fake archaeology is intentional. People are really selling fake stuff. Whether they know it or not, it doesn't matter. It's very clearly fake. Others of it is kind of accidental. People become enamored in something that is not scholarly, not scientific, not based on real evidence. And look, we all make mistakes. That second kind, I'm fine with. In fact, I've made mistakes. JT's made mistakes. We all make mistakes, and archaeology constantly changes and whatnot. But the goal here is to promote creators that include a variety of scholars and professionals in the field, as well as students, amateurs, and enthusiasts who are
Hmm.
interested in the actual archaeological evidence and the scholarship that undergirds it, meaning the actual approaches that are scientific and humanistic in nature that are based upon rigorous study of the past, not just this thing kind of looks like that thing and I have an idea and let's get stoned and talk about it. And
Yeah.
I want to be clear. I like getting stoned and talking about crazy stuff. Like, that is fun to me, and I have no problem with people doing that about archaeology. But as a scholar, I have to say, me just BSing on some topic when I'm over a beer at a pub. I'm now in the UK. I have to say pub. But me just BSing over at the pub or with some friends is not the same thing as rigorous scholarly approaches to something, professional approaches. We
Yeah.
don't all need to be scholars. And so it's about being respectful of all of the people that devote their lives and have that experience and expertise, rather than thinking just because you're BSing, you know better than us. My mic keeps cutting out. Damn it.
On my end, you're coming in good, but yeah, I don't know about the
Let's see.
stream.
I have two people that have said that. I wonder if it's just clipping and I'm being too loud. Um, let's see. Maybe it's the connection. Okay. Well, let's continue. I'll try to talk a little less loud so it doesn't clip. I sometimes get excited. So, all right. I think the first thing to do, I've given my spiel. What does real archaeology mean to you, JT?
Well, I think it's the same thing, and I think one of the things that really grow and really like interested me in the field when I first started getting here, because I kind of have a different path from you. You were exposed to archaeology at a very young age. I didn't get exposed to archaeology until much later. I was actually a railroader. I worked for the railroad, and when I got laid off, I decided to take an introduction to archaeology class when I decided to go back to school just for fun. And I think one of the big things for archaeology to me is that it is so interdisciplinary, is that so many different fields come into archaeology, and because of that, interdisciplinary studies that are involved in archaeology, so many people from different walks of life can contribute to our understanding of the past. And I work a lot with avocational societies now and things like that, and it's in the difference between an avocational archaeologist or someone that's really passionate about it but may not have the training, is that they work and spend the time to do the methods properly, and that goes a long way to me. So for me, real archaeology isn't just about the people with the degrees and things like that, but it's really about just the methods and things like that people employ to make sure that our understanding of the past is accurate, or as accurate as can be. But it comes from people with all different kinds of backgrounds and things like that, and it really pushes for a greater understanding and different perspectives coming in. And so for me, real archaeology is this interdisciplinary approach to things that enhance our ways of understanding the past through different fields and things like that. And it's a process that sometimes doesn't look as glamorous as it always is. My background is the guy in the hat on the side right there. That is me working, cleaning out a profile before we take pictures at a mound site in Mississippi.
Yes, and I think you hit a lot of points that are really important for people to get. One is that, to be honest, archaeology is this strange mix of people with PhDs and people with very blue-collar backgrounds. And a lot of what we do, no, I turned up my mic because people were talking, and I got to turn it back down a little because I'm clipping. So people that do archaeology, a lot of what we do is it's a combo of physical labor and mental labor to be able to understand the past. We're actually excavating and studying this material, and we're moving a lot of earth. You mentioned you did railroading. I imagine you did some digging as a railroader, or at least some people must. And so it's very similar in that sense, where there's a lot of physical labor going on. And a lot of the people I work with in the field, they are enthusiasts or amateurs, or they're just professional diggers. And it's a very labor-intensive field in that sense as well. And there's people from all walks of life, and international as hell. I've worked in over 10 countries. I don't know, I haven't counted lately, but it's something like 10 or 12 countries that I've worked in. And I work with people that are farmers. That's their real job. I work with people that are construction workers. People say we don't talk to engineers and architects. One of the architects mapping out the architecture, the Bronze Age architecture on a site I worked on, he designed skyscrapers in Dubai. He's a professional architect who, on his for his holiday time, he comes and does archaeology. And so it is really super interdisciplinary. And I want to play a game with the live chat. This is where I wish you could see it. So everybody in the live chat, what I want you to do first, for the next like 3 or 4 minutes, and we'll take a break in a second and read through some of them, is, Jesus Christ, people are weird. What disciplines closely overlap with archaeology? Put it into the live chat, a range of different disciplines, fields of study that closely overlap with archaeology. We'll come back and look at the answers in about 5 minutes, and then I'll ask a different question. I do this with my students fairly frequently because some of the answers are really interesting. Okay, so while we wait for some of those answers to come in, I think what we should do is we should look at some of the content that's going to be part of this weekend, because we have some really, really cool stuff. So let me move away from looking at the live chat and instead pull up our schedule. I'm going to get rid of you and me, and we're just going to show the schedule. So, okay, we just finished an hour ago a live stream with Professor Chris Stringer, who's one of the leading scholars who studies human evolution. And we talked about Neanderthals and different lineages in our human past, and that is now available for watching on my YouTube. Right now, we're in the middle of this Introducing Real Archaeology live stream. It's up here twice. Ignore it. You're in the right place if you're here. And then in about 45 minutes, we have a few different YouTube channels and podcasts dropping videos and a Twitter thread. So we have Stones in the River, Susquehannock Eel Weirs by the Crew of the Fancy, who I saw either in this live chat or my previous one. We have a video on Easter Island by Dale Simpson of his channel Illinois Simpson Archaeology, which I think, if I'm right, if I heard from him, it's going to respond to some of what Graham Hancock said on Season 2 of Ancient Aliens, which, by the way, a quick plug to myself, I interviewed Dale Simpson. It's on my YouTube. You can check it out, and it was a perfect pre-bunk for a lot of what Graham Hancock talked about. The podcast, Movies We Dig, and hello, Eli, if you're watching, I hope to see you in Romania somewhere at some point. They're doing a podcast episode on the Lara Croft reboot, Tomb Raider game from 2013 and film in 2018 with the scholar Julie Levy. And then Dr. Holly Walters, who I'll have on a live stream tomorrow, she's making a Twitter thread, I think it's a Twitter thread, an Archaeology of Interest, a conversation about how real archaeologists are made. I like the title. Ancient Now. Sorry, this is me like learning about this stuff. So this is on a Substack, it looks like. So a blog post on A Coffin Girl's Guide to the Book of the Dead. I'm excited to check that out.
Yeah.
Another blog post, this was Carl Fegans of the Archaeology Review. Real Archaeology, How Is It Done? We have a lot of stuff with real archaeology. I like this. Into the Dust Archaeology, which is a YouTube channel. They have an interview on archaeology crime with Sam Hardy. Sam Hardy studies illicit antiquities and other kinds of crimes that are committed with archaeology. I'm excited for that one as well. Steph the Archaeologist, I'm not sure if she's doing it on her TikTok, probably. She'll have a video or two on debt-free and Amica. And then Annalise the Archaeologist is also another TikToker. She's going to produce something that's to be confirmed. And this is all UK time, by the way, right here. Sorry. I should have clarified.
Yep.
All these times are in the UK time zone. That's 5 hours ahead of Eastern. And then at 6 p.m. or 1 p.m. Eastern, I'll have a live stream talking about pseudo-archaeology with Ken Fetter. And then the People in the Past, the great scholars behind the Combo blog, YouTube channel, and Twitter and podcast. They have Decoding Adolescence in the Human Skeleton with Creighton Avery. Dr. Ten Kellenbarger from the Dirt Diaries. She also has a great TikTok platform. She'll have a video on Bronze Age weapons in the Aegean and Egypt for her Finds Friday series. Looting Matters, the blog run by Dr. David Gill, will have a blog post on archaeological context makes sense. Archaeo Travelers, which is, the link here seems to be broken. We're going to have to figure that out for the website. I've seen them on Instagram and elsewhere. They're doing an Italian production, Carivari e Antichi Amuleti, Il Fascino Nascosto della Tomba Romana di Foring. I'm not sure if I got the Foring right. I'm not sure if my Italian is good at all. No me ne frega un cazzo. If you know Italian, you know what that means. Tholos History on YouTube. We'll be doing a video, Excavating Mysteries, the Dogu Figures of Prehistoric Japan / Ancient Yamato, the Archaeology of Japan's First State. I recorded an interview a few days ago with Dr. Chelsea Rose for her Underground History podcast, which will air on Jefferson Public Radio in Oregon, and it'll be on NPR as a podcast to download.
That's awesome.
Laura Taboni, the megalith hunter, who's one of our fantastic co-organizers, is releasing the video on her YouTube channel, revisiting the ancient Maltese cart ruts. Do they date to the Bronze Age or Classical period? Totally cool topic. And then there'll be another video by Dale Simpson on Illinois Simpson Archaeology, Mississippian mounds. And then the Ancient Americas channel, who, Pete, I think I saw you in the live chat. Did you change this, Pete? Get back to me in the live chat. Tell me if you've updated. Yes, he has it right here. So we need to change his topic. His topic is ancient life on the Great Plains, which sounds also really cool.
Yeah.
And then the blog Animal Archaeology by Alex Fitzpatrick, as she's returning with her fantastic series on why do we love plastic inaccurate skeletons so much, a Halloween investigation. And that's just today. So we have a lot of really cool content. I'm going to let JT introduce what's coming out tomorrow because he actually starts it off. Tell us about your video, JT.
Yeah, so I'll be talking about Native American mounds in Eastern North America, and I'll be giving. So I think a lot of the things is people like think of mounds as just having one shape or one purpose, but we've got effigy mounds, geometric mounds, shell mounds, midden mounds, all these different kind of mounds. And so just kind of going through some of the diversity that we see in mounds and then giving good examples. I'll be talking about Watson Break, Poverty Point, Monk's Mound at Cahokia, which is the largest mound in Eastern North America or north of Mexico and North America. Silver Glen, which is this huge like horseshoe-shaped shell mound, talking about the effigy mounds, serpent mound, talking about the geometric mound. So Mound City, which is now, part of the UNESCO World Heritage Site. And so a lot of that, I think, is a good way to kind of introduce some of the diversity we see in mounds in North America. And then after that, we'll see Petra and we'll see a tour of Petra. And Petra's, really big in the news right now because of the discoveries that just occurred underneath Petra. So that's really exciting. Next, everything you need to know about stone circles is wrong, which I think is super exciting. Anytime, we have these big changes in in interpretations and things like that, I think it's really cool. Uncovering the secrets of the pyramids. Pyramids are always a huge topic in archaeology. I know a lot of people, that's why they got into archaeology to begin with, was something to do with the pyramids. Current excavations of Sabrock. I am not going to pronounce any of these correctly, but it's cool to see some
which, by the way, Kaylee is there right now, so she has footage that she's going to be posting from the excavations going on right this second. So that should be really cool.
Yeah. Then you'll be having another live stream with Dr. Holly Walters.
She just had a book come out on shallograms, so we'll be talking about some of her research there. And by the way, the next one, I think Prehistoria Sonat has... sorry, that was not meant by anything. I just had something in my throat. I think Prehistoria Sonat actually won't be able to make the event in the end, if I remember right. So that she's still up here. She's a great Turkish, actually, Instagrammer who does a lot of really cool archaeology on Instagram. So do check her out, regardless if she doesn't produce something for this event. Sorry, go on now.
Yeah, and so next we'll talk about, we'll have Steph the archaeologist talking about Iron Age Oma, and then go with ancient Yamato, the archaeology of Japan's first state, which I think is super awesome. It's actually a very big topic I teach in a Great Discoveries class, and a lot of students will pick that for their first paper. Then you'll have another live stream. You are live streaming it up during this event about the genetic history of ancient Romans with Dr. Hannah Moots. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Yeah, and it's really cool. She has a great new paper out on this, which really puts together the picture of ancient DNA in the Iron Age and Roman Italy and within the context of the Mediterranean. And it's really cool stuff. So it should be a fun chat.
Yeah. Oh, I do want to mention, yeah, like UK times are showing up now. So the event, if you're in the US, which I am in the US, starts at 9 a.m. Um, Eastern, not Central, as I actually made that mistake earlier today. But um,
I think 10
so
a.m.
then,
Eastern, but yeah.
yeah. Um, then we have part of the cylindrical corpse of figures. I actually don't know what that is. It sounds really cool.
Cycladic
Um,
corpus. So it's about cycladic figurines, those like frying pans and the kind of marble figurines that are
oh,
sort of shown
yeah.
everywhere. Yeah. So David Gill again, he studies looting and issues with that, and cycladic figurines are a major part of that. They're big on the antiquities market, so he'll be
Oh,
talking about some of that. Yeah.
sounds super interesting. Next, we'll go into real pseudo archaeology with archaeology of the Mediterranean world.
Wait, let me just give a quick shout out to
Yeah.
this one because Archaeology of the Mediterranean World is run by an archaeologist who I've known for 15 years, Dr. Bill Caraher, and he considers himself both an archaeologist and a pseudo-archaeologist. So this is actually going to be a defense of pseudo-archaeology from an archaeologist. So it should be really interesting. It's a blog post.
Oh, yeah.
I want to have him on at some point to talk about that.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Um, I will be pronouncing the um I cannot pronounce this, so I'm gonna give this one to you, Flint, as
You're missing the one above it that's in English by Frederick, the Kensington Runestone.
that's not showing up on my end.
Oh, it's not. Okay. Weird. It shows up here. Okay. Well, there's the Kensington Runestone among River Kings and Hoaxes by our co-organizer Frederick Trusholm on digging up ancient aliens, and then Archeomila, who's a phenomenal Italian YouTuber and Instagrammer, is presenting a video direttamente dallo scavo archeologico, directly from the archaeological excavation. So that should be really cool because she's an archaeologist, so she'll be on site giving a sort of behind the scenes view. I'm not sure which project, but it's going to be somewhere in Italy, and I think it's going to be phenomenal. Okay, you can go on now.
Yeah, sorry. The Kensington runestone I'm actually really interested in. There's, a runestone in Oklahoma that people say is a real runestone that you can go to. It actually has a really nice park built around it, but not so much an accurate runestone. Um, After that, we'll have the shared histories, collective futures, why public outreach matters to me. I think that's really a great topic to talk about, especially with this, because I mean, this is public outreach. We have, it's content, but it's also reaching a broad audience in the public. And I think that's really awesome. Next, Flynn will have a live stream again with stories about really old dogs with David Evenhow. David Evenhow, extremely knowledgeable about dogs and can always present that information in an extremely entertaining way. So really looking forward to that tomorrow. Then you'll also have a discussion about Quetzalcoatl. I don't, with Dr. Stahl, I don't know how to mispronounce their first name.
Dr. Marika Stoll. She
Marika
focuses
Stoll.
on Mesoamerican archaeology. And just a note, what I'm going to do tomorrow, since my live streams are mostly contiguous, is I'm just going to do a 5-hour live stream. And I'll bring on these different scholars. And in the middle, I'm doing an Ask Me Anything on Ask Historians on Reddit. So you can actually watch me answer those questions in real time on the live stream. So it'll be a good time tomorrow.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Next, there's be a digging up ancient aliens. Frederick will have, on my end, this is where he has the runestones and monsters, the intersection of archaeology and myth. But I think for some reason, mine's slightly different than yours.
Where are you getting it from? Because I just loaded the website.
The website. I don't know why it's showing something different.
I have no idea. It might be it's in one of our cookies from somehow, and
Yeah.
the website's been updated. Another note, we've gotten new submissions from creators at the last minute. So one thing people should be doing is following the hashtag Real Archaeology, because you should find more content than what's just listed on here. Like Milo Rossi just got in touch. He will have a video coming out Sunday, but he had not gotten us the title or the time for it, so it's not actually on our schedule. But you can look forward to a mini Minuteman video as part of this event. He literally just sent me a WhatsApp like an hour and a half ago about this. So I promise you it'll be there. He was traveling and giving a lecture at the University of Maine, I think. So go on.
So yeah. So next is Turwal's the Menorca Shipwreck Project. Then Archeo News will have a discussion. I don't want to mispronounce that either.
Yeah, 4 novità del mondo dell'archeologia. So 4 new worlds, I think. Del mondo, I think that means worlds. From, I should get my wife. My wife knows Italian. I knew a little bit of Italian one day when I used to work there, but I haven't kept up with it. All right, well, it'll be good. Archeo Wallace does really good stuff on Instagram and YouTube as well, I think. So check it out. Okay.
So next we'll have Beehive Shillings dwelling in Harris and Lewis.
So in Scotland.
Scotland. So that sounds super awesome. Next would be episode 89, As Above, So Below, 2014, which is a movie review, if I'm correct.
Yeah. So these guys, they're paleontologists and archaeologists that review movies that are set or have something to do with the Stone Age. And so it's a podcast, Screens of the Stone Age.
And then kind of rounding out today, there'll be Extinct Animal Encounters by the Neanderthals by North 2, which is always, highly well-produced content. That'll be, I think, a good closing to day 2 of the Real Archaeology event on Saturday.
And then let's take a break from reading the schedule for a second, and because we don't want to lose people. So let's see if people put in what disciplines closely. Wow, this live chat has gotten full. So the disciplines that people have put in that closely relate to archaeology. Let's think this through. We have. I have to even go back to the top. Jesus, Flint's voice has been loud. Some people think I'm too soft. Some people think I'm too loud. You can't please anyone. It's just, come on. I don't know what to say. So let's see. We have chemistry. We have anthropology, history, geology, genetics, physics, geology, anthropology, architecture, history, geology, anthropology, genetics, history, geology, looking at bones, serial killer, sociology, biology, chemistry, geology, genealogy, anthropology, chemistry, geology, history, biology, applied physics, paleontology, policing and investigative work, geology, chemistry, history, anthropology, and Indiana Jones. DNA, geology, history, philosophy, chemistry, geography, meteorological studies, geology and paleontology. Somebody here knows too much about archaeology because they're putting it in subfields. They're like zooarchaeology and geoarchaeology and osteoarchaeology. That's certainly all part of archaeology. Radiography, astronomy, and now we're down at the end and we're just getting to people chit-chatting. So one of the cool things, climatology, all of those are definitely closely related to archaeology. And we got another call out for astronomy. Now I have the difficult question for everybody. We're going to go back to reading some more of the schedule, but while we're gone, I want you all to put into the chat what disciplines do not integrate at all with archaeology. What disciplines, what scholarly things, stop putting in things that do relate. You're putting in screen printing and art history. Move on to things that have nothing at all overlapped with archaeology. Okay, we are going to return back to the browser and introduce Sunday, the third day. And again, all these times are in UK times. And so we have Beaker's Dream on TikTok talking about L'Anse Meadow, the Norse in North America. Archaeology Tube, Bill Farley is going to be doing Real Archaeology of New England, so some of his own research, which should be a real treat. The Fake History Hunter, I have a video I'm still working on producing with her about her book on fake history hunting, and she's going to have a video on medieval stereotypes. Did people really live side by side with animals? So that'll be kind of cool. And then Nathaniel Fosine. Nathaniel, I need to learn how to pronounce your last name. Do you know, JT? You know him, don't you?
Fawcett.
Fawcett. Nathaniel Fawcett is going to do a video on decaying bones, the flesh of memory, zooarchaeology at the William Spring Village. Steph, the archaeologist on TikTok, will do a video or two on PhD research. Paul Whitewick on his YouTube channel will do Neolithic carved balls. I wonder what that'll be about. And then I'll do some live streaming. I'll have Frederick Trussam on of Digging Up Ancient Aliens, and we'll talk about unexplained ancient aliens phenomena, UAAP. The fabulous YouTuber Dr. Smithy Nathan will have a video on the globe-trotting archaeology of apples. And I'll have another live stream with Nathaniel Fawcett. I'm going to have to learn how to pronounce his name before I have him on human behavioral ecology. The YouTube channel Lady of the Library will have a story on weaving her story, storytelling, and textiles. Curly from Tales from Atlantis said there was a tragedy in his family, so I'm not sure what they're releasing, if they are at all. They might be republishing an old episode. But if you don't already listen to Tales from Atlantis with Curly and Ruben, you really should, because they are two indigenous archaeologists who are really getting out good stories about indigenous archaeology in the Americas, and good research. Something's off here. I don't know who's producing this video. We're going to have to check and maybe think about updating the website. Some channel is making myths, narratives, and iconography of Göbekli Tepe, Karahan Tepe, and Cyberch. Maybe this was Kaylee's submission and then it got changed. That might be the case. I'm not sure. And then Life of an Archaeologist is doing a blog post on Baldur's Gate 3, Druids, Henges, and Springs. Hashtag real archaeology. Yeah. And then this is in here wrong. So Rick Pettigrew of the Archaeology channel. So it's not TBC, it's TAC. And everybody should check these guys out. They're really phenomenal. It's heritagetac.org. Let me load this up right now. And this is the Heritage Broadcasting Service. This is a TV channel designed to share archaeology. So I want everybody to check this out. These people do real professional productions, and they're phenomenal, and so they've agreed to get a video out in public for us to help promote us, and we'll help promote them. So do check it out. They did get their submission in very late, and so that's why it's not fully updated on the website. We had way too many things coming in at the last minute. And then OpenPast will have something, archaeology all around you and how to get involved. OpenPast is a blog page, Doug's Archaeology. And so that is our awesome full event, except for those that I didn't mention, because we've had some come in really late, and there's some people who have, like I said, so Mini Minuteman told me that his video will be something on Halloween. It'll be his Halloween video, and that'll be released Sunday as part of this. He didn't give me a title or anything, so we can't, or a time, so we're not adding it to the website without any real information. But the point is there's more out there beyond even what's just on the website. So be sure to check out the hashtag Real Archaeology on pretty much every social media platform. You will see posts. So let's look here at what disciplines do not relate to archaeology. Well, let's see. We have here, let's see, this is good. This is really good. So palm reading is the first one. That's tough. I'm not sure if I consider palm reading a discipline, but I tend to think that astrology and some of these new agey things have a historical past to them, and I bet you we probably have some iconography of people doing palm reading, and therefore it can actually be archaeological. And you might even be able to apply it to some of those handprints that you sometimes see.
Yeah, one of the big things in Eastern North America is the hand and eye figure, which has in the center of the palm is an eye, and it shows up on a lot of indigenous iconography. So
yes, so this is something that can be applied to archaeological iconography or thoughts about ancient artifacts or handprints or things like that. So my student actually came up with the example of gaming. And gaming is such a great example of something that very much has to do with archaeology. There's a whole subdiscipline that's thriving right now called archaeogaming, where people study the ways in which archaeology is deployed within video games or board games. And so this really matters. How does archaeology show up in modern society is very much a subdiscipline of our field. Now they're talking about tomb raiding. Fabrication. No, because we work with engineers and we work with people who are materials scientists that do things like fabrication to be able to understand archaeology. This is one of these misconceptions about the field that I'm sure you've seen online as well,
Yeah.
JT, is that we very much do collaborate with people that do this. In fact, one of the mods for the Fraudulent Archaeology Wall of Shame, he just got in touch with me saying, hey, I'm really excited about this event. And he was explaining how he's an architect, right? This kind of stuff, we work with these people all the time. Astrology, definitely not. One of my good friends studies at Tampa, is a professor in Tampa Bay. I just saw him recently when I was on a podcast. He is a classicist that studies ancient astrology, and we can find also artistic and iconographic depictions of astrology in the ancient world. And Dale, you're an archaeologist. You should know better to put that up there. Come on, man. We study this stuff for sure. Butterfly collecting. Butterfly collecting. This might be the first. Yeah, tell me.
So here's the thing, though. In North America, once anything becomes 50 years old, it is part of, the archaeological record that by our standards. So 1970s butterfly collecting would definitely be topics when you're doing archaeology, the hippie movement and things like that. Butterfly collecting, would also be a topic you would have to possibly cover in archaeology when doing CRM.
I will admit that this one's more of a stretch. I have another way of stretching it. My PhD supervisor, Professor Kathleen Lynch at the University of Cincinnati, her husband is a biologist who studies butterflies. And we used to talk about the difference between field research in archaeology and in butterfly collecting, if you will. So there's certainly a lot of overlap because of that. But no, in more seriousness, I think there's actually actual overlap, though, because people aren't just butterfly collectors. They actually study butterflies and how they contribute to the ecosystem and the ecology. And we work with people who study modern ecology to be able to understand paleoecology. So by looking at the different, say, flora that show up, like the botanical signatures of different flowers and stuff like that, that can give us the same kind of signatures that maybe studying butterflies can, because butterflies are very susceptible to sort of changes environmentally and climatically. So I think there actually are ways where not butterfly collecting, but where people who research butterflies and ecology, they can actually have an impact on archaeological questions. Arendel suggests rocket science. One of my students in my class suggested this as well, and sorry, no, but there's actually a cool paper that just came out on the archaeology of the International Space Station. I really want to do a video on that at some point, and one of my friends, a geoarchaeologist, about a year ago published a paper on Justin Holcomb on the Anthropocene of the moon and how lunar landings and other human impacts on the moon's environment have actually created an Anthropocene there, because it's actually those that have modified the moon more geologically than anything else at this point.
There was actually a couple of years ago a big topic about things from the original U.S. moon landing and things like that would be part of the archaeological record now, and who has claim to the parts on there. I remember there was arguments between like California and Texas and Florida about who really could claim the pieces from the lunar landing that were still on the moon and things like that. So that's even a topic that has come up in archaeology and things like that.
Oh, 100%. It's very important. We have line dancing. Now, we have iconographic depictions of line dancing on ancient art, and so when we have descriptions of it in ancient texts in different places of the world. So it's definitely something we can look for archaeologically. Biscuits. Oh, come on. Food? What do you think? All of archaeology is about studying food when you think about it. It's about studying the stone tools used to hunt and butcher animals. It's about studying the seeds that are left behind. It's about studying the spaces where people cooked, prepared, and ate food. It's about studying the trash from that. All of archaeology is the study of food. So biscuits, no way. Internet security. Nah, we get hacked too. You know, like museums have been hacked recently. I used to work IT at the Penn Museum. That was my first part-time job after college, and I learned IT security
Well,
to
one
be
of
able
the
to.
one of the big things I'm in the process of writing an NSF grant right now, and one of the big things is that we have to have a digital archive and for it, and we have to, part of our funding actually goes to securing the data through a digital archive, and so we have to be familiar and actually write in the NSF now, about internet security and how the data will be protected, but also accessible through sources like that. So that's a big requirement now that we actually talk about in our NSF proposals.
Exactly. So key. We have commerce and marketing. Nah, museums and other things, they're selling stuff all the time and marketing stuff. Us YouTubers, we're certainly doing marketing, and some of us have even marketplaces in commerce.
I mean,
Uh,
that's a huge CRM thing. Like that it's a capitalistic business, cultural resource management. So marketing and commerce and things like that, that's a huge deal, especially with bidding on projects and things like that. We have to be pretty familiar with business principles and things like that.
Yeah, because that's something a lot of people don't understand is a lot of archaeologists are not just scholars working at universities. There's a whole range of people that work for governments or work for commercial funds,
Hmm.
commercial firms that therefore have to work when construction and infrastructure projects go on. So yeah, it's something that we should get into at some point. Brain surgery. Actually, did you know that some of the earliest evidence of surgery is brain surgery? It's something called trepanation, where there's these holes that people cut into skulls. We don't do this today. It's not modern brain
Yeah.
surgery, but it's something that has existed in many cultures over thousands of years. So, yeah, even understanding the specifics of brain surgery can be applied to archaeological questions. Um, Musical farting. I agree, Forest Dweller. Musical farting doesn't have
I haven't
much
even
to
thought
do
about
with
that before.
archaeology, but music and studying ancient music certainly does. I know plenty of people that do this, that study early bone flutes or that study ancient Greek tortoiseshell lyres, for example.
Hmm.
So stringed instruments made out of tortoise shells that we have examples of, as well as iconographic depictions. Home dentistry, no, certainly we have dental stuff that we do. I'm constantly working on teeth, not human teeth, but animal ones. Architecture, we do a lot of. I'm not sure what BI architecture is. I don't know what the BI stands for.
Not
Um,
a clue.
Circus clown. Thanks, Adam. Um, Circus clown. Well, I mean, we do study past entertainments and theater masks and things like that, so it's
I mean,
certainly
there's
relevant.
in the
Yeah.
US, there are museums with circus that focus on the circus and have artifacts from, like, Ringling Brothers and things like that, from older circuses and things like that. Um, it's
And this is where people are starting to realize in the chat that actually everything has to do with archaeology. And that's kind of the point. People say physics. Where do you think radiocarbon dating comes from? It comes from physics. You know, all the basic stuff that we do. Brain surgery, Pete's just asking about brain surgery. And so this is one of the points that clowns are academic. They go to college. Thanks, Adam, for defending yourself. And so this is one of the points I always try to get across to people here. I'm going to get up. I'll still talk because I can still chat, but I need to close this window because it's very sunny. So, one of the points I always try to make across to students and to people in the general public is that archaeology really is the most interdisciplinary field in everything in everything in our university system. In many ways, the reason why is we study humans, and so we study human creations and what they do and what they did, and so that brings in all the humanities from arts and literature and language, and then it also brings in all the social sciences, studying
yeah.
humans in various contexts. And then it also, because we're using modern methods and scientific methods to do so, we bring in all the different sciences involved, from biology to chemistry to physics and astronomy even, to understand all kinds of astronomical alignments. And then
Yeah, well, I think
last,
one of the
yeah.
big things is that, we study humans. And so anything humans are responsible for or have done, that's going to fall under, archaeology. And so we study humans. We're trying to understand the human past. And so because of that, things that are within the human past can fall under the umbrella of archaeology at some point.
Exactly. And that's just why, that's one reason why. And then same thing with the sciences. But then we also use the modern application of modern technologies. So that
Yeah.
brings in things like computers and other kinds of knowledge to be able to apply these technologies and these techniques. And so, that's also then, that's why we have a lot of technicians involved. And so,
Yeah.
it's just sort of like we work with everybody, anybody that is willing to work with us and respect our understanding of the archaeological record can have a voice in being able to contribute to real archaeology by contributing their angle of expertise and framing it within the context presented by the history of our discipline and the large quantity of evidence that we've been producing for hundreds of years. And so, it's one reason that really frustrates me when we talk about this fake archaeology, which I think we should talk about for 5-10 minutes for a little bit,
Yeah.
is how does this distinguish real archaeology from fake archaeology? Because oftentimes they say that we are being closed-minded or we're not accepting other kinds of input. How do we actually get this across that actually we do accept input from all these other disciplines, and we always have?
Yeah, I think that's a really like when people actually start to learn about archaeology from archaeologists, they realize how diverse it actually is. I don't know how many times I've been to an archaeological conference and people have gotten in huge arguments about the past and things like that. And then there's people with so many different interests and things like that. I mean, I do PXRF on Stone Tools, and I work with the geology department. I do GIS as another part. I work with the geography department. There's this huge different kind of interdisciplinary work that's constantly going on. And I think when people learn about real archaeology, they learn that it is disciplinary. But if you're only taking in fake archaeology, you're presented this idea that it's very closed-minded. But even if you just look at the same you spend time on Google Scholar looking up the same topic that you see some of these fake archaeology videos about, you'll see, oh wait, no, there is all this interdisciplinary work that's going into it and things like that. So I think once you just take a little bit of time to learn the field, you actually learn that there's a ton of diversity, and people with different interpretations, and are open-minded to a lot of different things that are going on.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. And I also think, to add to that, that we oftentimes work with amateurs and enthusiasts all the time. Community archaeology is a big thing. Anybody that's interested in real hands-on archaeology, I guarantee if you look it up, you can find options in your vicinity, whether it's at a museum or whether it's on a project that might happen only seasonally, or at the university. There's so many different options available, and I work with amateurs all the time. I mean, enthusiasts and people. I've had a French hairdresser who used to come in once a week to our science lab, our archaeological science lab in Athens, Greece. She was from Paris, France. She lived in Athens, and she was a hairdresser, and she wanted to learn about archaeology, so she came in and worked with me. And it's like I have worked with people from all walks of life who are just simply interested in what goes on. And there's plentiful examples of enthusiasts who end up publishing real archaeological work. Though one of the examples I'm thinking of right now is in my class, when I asked the question about what disciplines don't have any interaction, somebody said hairdressing. And I was like, well, actually, there was a hairdresser in Boston who worked with some art historians to publish on Roman hairstyles from sculptural remains. And so it's just like, we really do have this broad overlap, and it's really cool to see when it works out. And I think that then gets back to the genesis of this event. The problem is that people just don't know what 21st century archaeology is. And we live in this world where what gets shown on TV, even the stuff that's more real, let's say, isn't. Even the stuff that's more real isn't. And it's a little better in the UK. Don't get me wrong. There's the history of Time Team here, and there's now Digging with Britain, which is really quite good and produced mostly with archaeological input. But much of the rest of the stuff that's on TV is so heavily massaged. I'm going to have Dr. Megan Perry on my YouTube. I invited her to do a live stream for this, but she wanted to do it in a careful way. And we're going to talk about that Petra fiasco with Josh Gates that just came out, because there's a lot of ethical issues with the way that was presented. And the thing is, producers and sorry, someone just gave me a meat eater, just gave me a super chat for I don't know what kind of currency it is, saying to wear the Indiana Jones hat. So I suppose I can try to hang on and wear the Indiana Jones hat while I have my headphones on for a little bit. Oh no.
Yeah, well, I think also going on that, at the last SAA, some of us at the University of Oklahoma, Delaney, Cooley, and I, we recommended someone for the Crabtree Award for SAA, which is an award for avocational archaeologists that have made a difference. And the individual that won it was a retired rancher that we had put forward. But even like there's avocational archaeologists who have been like huge to the field in Louisiana with Poverty Point, hunter gatherers, Caddo, and things like that. Clarence Webb was such a big inspiration for a lot of the work, and he was a medical doctor that when he passed away, there was archaeologists had a conference just to discuss his contribution to the field.
Sorry, they're all thumbing up the hat. Look, for every $5 I
Your
get,
audio is cutting out now.
Oh, is my audio cutting out? Fuck. Did that happen again?
The hat broke the audio.
The hat broke
It's
the
too
audio. This
powerful.
happened last time I got up to get the hat. Do I have to hit this? Is that better? Is that better? No?
No.
Fuck. No. 1 second. Let me figure this out. See, this is the problem with getting up. So
It's better now.
it's better now. Okay.
The hat, I told you, the hat is too strong. It just
The hat has vibes. That's my new hat, actually. I got that hat just a couple months ago. Finally got it, which is good. So Pete says they can hear me just fine. But yeah, so it's this idea that people don't get what we do. And I think that's one of the real goals that we're all coming together here, is to try to say, look, there really is good real archaeology on YouTube, on TikTok, on podcast formats, in blog formats. People just don't know where to look. And everybody just pays attention to the crap. And it's like everybody sort of says, yeah, I'm hoping to, Stuart. Thank you. But everybody sort of says, well, what was I going? I was going somewhere with this. I'm paying attention to the live chat. I'm paying attention. That's it. Everybody always says that we're trying to censor the pseudoscientists. And it's like, man, I don't care what people talk about. Just don't say you know more about what I do than us. That's just ludicrous. Yeah. Go do whatever you want. Say whatever you want. Just stop challenging us because we know our shit. Okay, that's just the reality. Just like any other discipline, the people in our discipline, we know what we're on about. We're not just some fools that are farting around at this. And so, the reality of it is that we are the ones who are constantly being censored in our society. We have an idea and a narrative in archaeology. When we try to present it to the media or to a documentary producer or whatever, they transform it into what they think the public wants to hear. And as soon as they do that, we lose our voice and our ability to communicate directly what 21st century archaeology is about. And so the only people in the world that actually know what a 21st century archaeology is about are either archaeologists or people that have worked closely with archaeologists or people that have taken university level archaeology. And that means very few people because it's not super accessible. And so there we have JT's cat briefly showing up. And so it's just like, we need to get our voices out there, and we need to work with those who are interested in working with us. And that's why, like I saw Pete from Ancient Americas, he's a great example of a film producer who's producing amazing content. And it's like we need to work with all the different people that want to get our narratives out there. And I want to work with anyone that's interested in treating us respectfully, and we treat them respectfully as well, so that we collaborate. And that's what this event is about. It's about that collaboration, that ecosystem of all of us that are interested in sharing real archaeology with the public and trying to build that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the big things too. I've talked to, a dozen archaeologists who have been on various shows on like the History Channel or something like that, and they always are told that, when they're on the show, they tell me that they have to be like, but we don't know, or there's this mystery around this thing, instead of being able to just share what we do know about it. That the people who are making these shows want to mystify it in a way that it's not really necessary. There's so much about the past that's, still cool and things like that. I was actually just talking today about, Poverty Point, for example. We know that indigenous hunter-gatherers built it. We know we don't need to come up with like, that a lost civilization was responsible or taught them how to do it. There's mystery about why did they build it? Why in that location? How long did they stay there? How long did it take to build? Did the people who were using it think of themselves as a one entity, or were they different people from all over coming together for a different thing? There's plenty of mystery there. You don't need to make it into something it's not. Just let the natural mystery be there.
Exactly, and I mean, it's just a lack of imagination for these producers and editors and whatnot, because it's just like I have 20 years of experience of talking to the public. I am not new to talking to people, from going to retirement homes to classrooms with 7-year-old children, to speaking to adults in museums or on site, to a variety of different people from a variety of different backgrounds in different languages and different countries even. Like the reality I've seen is every time I tell the stories that we have to tell, people are actually interested. And so it's this lack of imagination and thinking that people only want the same old mysteries, when in fact we have all kinds of cool stuff that we're looking into, and we need to be given that voice and that platform. And so that's really what this goal is here, is to make this isn't the start, it's already started. There's already been archaeologists doing this for a while, there's already been enthusiasts doing this for a while, but this is the start of hopefully getting us to be a little more cohesive, a little more supportive, to build up this sort of online ecosystem of varied people who have different voices and different stories and different things to tell, to hopefully encourage more scholars, more professionals, more amateurs, more enthusiasts to all join in, because this is going to be really fun, and I think it'll be super fun as we keep moving forward over these days as well. So yeah, I think that's key. Do you want to add in anything else on this, or should we talk more about your research?
Well, I think just that, I think hopefully one of the things I'm hoping, like personally, from this movement is that, it increases the exposure a lot of these archaeologists that are doing great work, or enthusiasts and things like that, and shows that there is a big market for that. And hopefully that creates some change in, when archaeologists, are on these, History Channel shows and things like that, that they're able to share, the real mysteries and the real questions that we're trying to answer, instead of, just it's a mystery, we don't know anything. And I hope that change, because once we get that, I think that would actually pull in more people than just going, it's a mystery, we don't know anything. I think if we talk about the better questions and things like that, and the the interesting parts and the puzzles and things like that there are in archaeology, that will attract a lot of people. That's usually what gets most of, like when I teach a class, that's usually what gets the students engaged, is, they start throwing out different ideas about what things are going on. And because there's plenty of mystery there, we don't have to come up with something just to come up with something.
Exactly. 100%. Just to address some of the chat things, the reason Stefan Milo's not been mentioned is because we hate him. No, I'm joking. Stefan Milo's awesome. It was just too rushed of a timetable for him to participate this time around. He's excited to participate the next time around. He illustrated me as a cartoon character in his book. So, we go way back. I'm a big fan of Stefan Milo. He got his undergrad degree from Sheffield in Sheffield Archaeology, and we came together to try to protest how that archaeology department got shut down. And so, so Stefan's fantastic. I've seen a lot of mentions of Alice Roberts. I invited Alice Roberts to participate. She was also busy at this time, but we've gotten along in the past and promoted each other's stuff, so I'm hoping we can get Alice Roberts on board in the future for a future Real Archaeology event. Like I said, we're totally open, and there's all kinds of channels and people that I'd never heard of before who that we need to get on board, because there's just so many people out there doing this kind of hard work, and I hope that we will expand this community each time we keep doing it. I also am really keen. We had a few different submissions in Italian. I want to get more non-English language submissions next time.
Yeah.
And we're going to work hard to make sure we get more of those next time, because I think archaeology needs to be extremely inclusive. And so I think a lot of different, there's a lot of room to improve in the future, is what I'm saying. And we just wanted to get something together quickly for Archaeology Month, supported by the Archaeological Institute of America, and make sure that this could be successful. And I think it's so far turning out great. We have 160 people watching right this second, and the chat is extremely lively in a very positive way. And so there haven't been as many questions. So let's move on to some of your research. So by way of introduction, we have JT Lewis here, PhD candidate at the University of Oklahoma, and he studies the archaeology of southeastern North America. And so he looks at sort of how mounds are built and what they mean, and that's what his video's on. He also does stone tools. So JT, this is your PhD exam. What do I have here?
Oh, that is a projectile point.
What
Looks
kind?
like that is the. Is it? Don't. The lighting makes it hard to see the flake pattern.
I'm not very good with the camera. I need to get better at this shit. Yeah, so it's a Clovis point made for me by James Green. And the reason he made this one for me is he made me a series. And so this is kind of cool. What this series is what I want to challenge everybody. This actually comes from my dad's research, right? So my dad, one of his things he was most famous for, he named me Flint after stone tools made out of flint. He made, for example, this badass Levallois core and a few. I have a lot of tools not here. I have a really nice projectile point that he had. Where? There it is. This is my dad's projectile point.
Wow,
So,
that's nice.
Yeah, he was an expert flint napper. In fact, I don't know if any of you have seen Clan of the Cave Bear. Let me see if I can pull this up.
I've not seen that.
So Clan of the Cave Bear. Fuck. My internet's lagging too much. I'll have to post it in somewhere else. But my dad made the stone tools for Clan of the Cave Bear. And he made...
That's cool.
Like, I think it was 4,000 lithics for them. And the assholes who produced the movie, huge movie in the middle of the 1980s, right? Came out in 1984 or 5 or something like that. And the jerks that produced the movie, they gave them an option to be paid a little bit for doing it, or to get his name in the credits. So as some poor young university professor, he chose to take the money. So his name isn't even in the credits of the movie. He made 4,000 stone tools for them to use. What
That is ridiculous.
Jerks. Talk about archaeologists being censored, right? This is what I'm talking about. This is how the media treats us. If I go and do some research and answer questions for a documentary producer, do I get credit? Do I get paid? Not usually. So, this is why I'm doing YouTube. Everybody chip us some super thanks so that we can keep doing this, because otherwise I won't do this. But in reality, this is what happens. And so, okay, so James made this for me. Let's go back to the actual story. With these kind of things, because what this shows is these look like 3 different tools. They have very different shapes, like this and this, or this one. But in fact, these are all the same tool. This is the blank from which this is made. As you use this spear point, it gets dull, and you have to resharpen it by knocking bits off, and then you end up with something like this, and then you continue resharpening it, and you end up with something like this. And so when we talk about different artifacts, we oftentimes think, well, this culture had this kind of artifact, and that culture had that kind of artifact. The reality is different artifact types, as we label them as archaeologists, can relate to far more than just cultural differences. It could just be as simple as someone sharpening their pencils, which is what this is in a sense. It's sharpening your spearhead. And so what these are just different stages of reduction of stone tools, from sort of the initial product to something along the middle to its final use life. And these could all be dropped at different points for various reasons and then collected by archaeologists. And it's important for us to understand artifacts in a more complex way than just labeling what the hell they are. And yes, this took us like 80 years of research into stone tools to really fully develop our understanding of reduction. And yet, all of the studies of stone tools now are all based around understanding reduction in some form or another,
Hmm.
because that's how you understand and study the production and reuse and use of stone tools. And so it's just, I hope, a good example for people of how nuanced archaeology is and the importance of understanding the history of the field and the different ways in which tools are interpreted that help us then explain it now with all the lovely complexity that we have. So let's think about your research now. You also work on lithics. Let me pull up some of the
Yep.
slides that you shared with me to share with people. First slide, of course, needs to be, hey guys, if you haven't checked out the website at the bottom right, we have so much cool stuff happening. I think the first YouTube videos are being dropped right now. So if you take off now, no worries. This will still be around. So all right, tell us about this stone tool, JT. What's going on?
So this is a Gary projectile point. There's a picture later we'll talk about different Garys, a sub-variety of Gary points. But one of the things that's been really interesting in my research is I look at stone tool reduction, but I also look at one of the primary things that I look at is sourcing where the material is actually coming from. So so I focus like Flint said in southeastern North America, primarily in the late Archaic to early Woodland period. So about 3,000 or a little over 3,000 years ago to about 1,000 years ago. And one of the interesting things is first archaeologists in the 50s called these crude. Being someone who flint knaps myself, I have my flint knapping tools right here actually. Um, these points, you know, they're we sometimes put judgments on them, which I don't agree with. I think once you actually start making stone tools a lot more often, you realize how difficult some of these are. And I saw a question in the chat earlier: 4,000 tools. Would someone be able to make that in their lifetime? Yes.
My
You
dad did
can.
it in like a year or less, and he was doing that
Yeah.
while working full time. So, if you know what you're doing and how to do stuff, yeah, you can make 4,000 stone tools. Now, remember, a lot of them were just flakes, right? Because
Yeah.
people use simple flakes all the time in the past.
But so these are projectile points, hafted bifaces, or the arrowheads that people commonly refer to them as. And one of the big things with this is the material it's made out of. And so some of the things that I've been interested in with my dissertation research was during the times we had large scale social phenomena going on. So like Poverty Point, which I did my master's thesis on Poverty Point, is all kind of material is coming into Poverty Points. Copper from the Great Lakes, pottery from modern day Florida and Georgia. And there's even material from modern day Arkansas showing up. But one thing that I noticed is that there was not a lot of material coming from Oklahoma, the region in Oklahoma that I study now. And I was really curious about why that was. And so one of the things that I work on is when I look at these archaeological sites in uh, eastern Oklahoma, I'm looking at where the raw material, the stones and stone sourcing for all that material, and I find out that most of the material at the site is coming from very close, within, in most cases, less than 50 kilometers away. Most of the material is coming in there, and we're not actually seeing a lot of foreign material. And so my dissertation research has really focused on, looking at, instead of these huge exchange networks that we see with like Poverty Point and the large social phenomenon that's going on there, is looking at people who aren't participating. So we always, there's a big focus on those that are participating in these big exchange networks and things like that. But some of my research now is kind of looking at the other side of the coin, looking at, people who aren't participating and why that may be.
Mm-hmm.
So this Gary point here is made from Johns Valley quartzite, which is quartzite is not the highest quality material to nap with. Um,
Which
But
good. You
we
just
see
answered
that.
Stuart Grant's question because he was asking what it was
Oh,
made
okay.
from, so you're good.
Um, and so it uh, is very close to the site, though, and there's chert material that is close, but it's not as close. So we see that a lot of preference was just relied on, like, what was available in the local landscape instead of preferencing higher quality or further away exotic materials. So yeah, so that's what I've been doing with some of those projectile points there, is sourcing the stone from where the locations are, which would require a lot of in the field geological work going through in eastern Oklahoma.
That makes sense. The next image you sent me is this one.
So this is actually a WPA excavation. So in the U.S. in the 1940s, to deal with all of the financial crises that were going on and things like that, there was the Works Progress Administration, and so these were archaeologists. Usually, these were excavators that had not been trained previously. A lot of blue collar people that excavated a lot of these sites, and so a lot of these sites were excavated in the 1940s, but weren't analyzed by archaeologists because the work's progress was just to get people to be able to do work to pay their bills and things like that. And
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of the collections that I look at now are actually from the 1940s that had previously not been examined. And I think that's one of the big things when people are like, oh, we have to excavate, we have to dig full excavations now, 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 now. There's a lot of stuff that a lot of time that is dedicated to the analyses of this, and with the past of like these WPA excavations, they're just waiting to be analyzed. And so a lot of my data comes actually from past excavations. I don't need to excavate 10 new sites to answer these questions when a lot of these are already been excavated. So this is actually a picture of one of the sites that I've been working on where that projectile point that we just saw, that Gary point, actually came from. This was a WPA excavation from the 1940s, and that's one of the photos from it.
Huh, that's interesting. And I mean, I've always told students, and I was told this as a student, that the archaeology of the 21st century is as much excavating storerooms and museums from older excavations to be able to interpret them with new methods and new questions and up-to-date research. And so that's really important. Hey, the links should all be www.real-archaeology.com, and everything should be available after this weekend as well. So like this live stream is being recorded. You can come back to it later or share it with people. Same with everybody. I think everybody's content should be available for longer. We have links to everybody's pages and stuff like that to check it out. Sorry, people were asking questions.
No,
And if you need to go, please go check out Kara Cooney, please. She's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so image number 3. I think just one person said goodbye, so I was just saying.
No,
Yeah.
good. And I also want to say the 1930s. These were actually excavated in the 1940s with the Work Progress Act. So it's 1939 to 1942 Works Progress Administration were doing excavations in Oklahoma.
Okay.
So this is a double-pitted axe. This is actually not an axe. It's a gardening hoe. And we can tell that from the polish and wear that's been created on. In University of Arkansas, there was a PhD student who did experimental archaeology and produced their own double-pitted axes and worked them on various types of materials and things like that. And come to find out that these double-pitted axes that you see here were actually used for gardening, so a lot of land terraforming and things like that.
Huh.
And we see, based on environmental studies, that it was likely to produce, cultivation, not quite agriculture, but to cultivate a lot of the places. And the reasons for that, it kind of starts, the puzzle starts coming together. If they're not, being very mobile on the landscape and things like that, they are going to be needing to do different activities in order to have higher food yields. And we see a lot of double-pitted axes in a lot of these midden areas that we're looking at here, and they come in different things. So this is solidified. Sorry, not solidified.
Silicified.
I can't get. So yeah, sandstone. We also see them with hematite or quartzite, but they're usually these harder, tougher materials, but they're still chipstone tools. And we also see single pitted axes, and we see that those were usually based on the polish and the wear on those, that those were primarily used on wood, tree resources and things like that in the
Hmm.
society. So this is just another really cool tool, and it's actually one of the things that's come to kind of, you know, uh, easily recognizable for the Fushmaline culture, archaeological culture, which is the kind of archaeological culture that's been designated for the groups that I study in eastern Oklahoma all the way to northwestern uh, Louisiana.
Okay. Okay. And then we have some of these Gary points, I guess.
Yeah, so this next thing is you have three different types of Gary points, and we can see one of the cool things that we can see with this is that there's a change in how the Gary projectile points are being made through time. So even if we don't have radiocarbon dating or things like that, we can get relative dating for the site. And one of the other cool things we see is around AD 800, we see at least the emergence of the bow and arrow. And one of the cool things is, I talked about previously how the people here aren't kind of going into these other large scale phenomenon, and instead they're focusing on, their local landscape, their traditions and things like that. So even with the introduction of the bow and arrow to this area, they keep making Gary points that are usually used for spears. They keep making Gary points. They just make them smaller and adapt them to the bow and arrow. So even, their, stone tool technologies, it's still kind of refuting what other types of things people are kind of trying, like these larger social phenomena that are kind of pushing in. They're rejecting those things and, really focusing on, their stone tool technologies, their landscape, their kind of uh, environment and their sense of identity and things like that. And that's just really cool to me to see this change in these kind of stone tools to reflect people's sense of identity.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I mean, we have this concept, which I mean, even Graham Hancock pushes back on this idea of a linear trajectory to human history,
Hmm.
and I just want to make it clear: archaeologists don't think that anymore. Like
Hmm.
that is very much an early 20th century idea on how human history happened. The reality is that human history is just whatever we all choose to do, which means some people are doing this thing over there and some other people are doing that thing over there. And we're all doing different things. And so some people are starting to organize in a different way. Other people are still continuing to live in the same way. And so, I
Yeah.
think that's really, really important for people to recognize. And it's one of the big hangups people have that hunter gatherers can't be responsible for really cool stuff. And it's like, no, hunter gatherers are people like you and me. Their economy is designed differently. It doesn't mean
Yeah.
they're not capable of anything. And that's it. And so, yeah, so sorry, we'll go back to your slide. You have one more.
Yeah. Mhm.
Um, Last one. What is this blurry photo?
So this is an actual, so one of the characteristics of the group, the communities that I study is a midden mound. So the kind of idea of a midden is, refuge. And so this is a midden mound in the background. They're actually, instead of, height, they're dispersed kind of wide out. And so these huge midden areas where we see the mounds are constructed of stone debris, so flakes, um, a little bit of pottery sherds and things like that. But we see this and we see a lot of deer bones and different things like that. But there's not just refuse in there. There's also full vessels or ancestors and or these very ornate bone pins and things like that. So the kind of whole bringing into this whole idea that, like, we're putting a kind of classification on it as refuse, as a midden mound, but in reality, the things that we think of that may be trash may actually hold still significant value to things like that. And so this is just one of the smaller mounds, and they're much different than what people usually think about with earthen mounds, which have, a large height to them, which, they may be Poverty Point Mound A is 22 meters in the air. These are much smaller. Most of the mounds are 3 to 5 foot in size, height wise, but they're much more dispersed out in there. And so it's really interesting to kind of think about how even in things like this, that they're building mounds, but they're building them in a different way than a lot of the rest of the Southeast. And I think kind of going on to that, we do see things that ideas that are coming from other places. So one of the big things that are usually associated with the burials that are going in here are these things called banner stones or boat stones. And I don't have any pictures of those, as the indigenous community that I work with don't want to share those. But you can Google images and see a lot of recreations and different things like that of them. But they're getting the ideas of what a banner stone or what a boat stone is, but they're not making it of the same material. They're actually making it of the same low quality chert or quartzite that they have around them. But the idea of what that is from other people, but they're adapting it to their principles, to their traditions, and to their beliefs and things like that. And that's just something that's really cool to me, is instead of this group of people who, are kind of vesting into this sense of identity with like Poverty Point or Hopewell and things like that, we have a group that was present during both the Poverty Point social phenomenon and the Hopewell phenomenon. And they're deciding, instead of, identifying as, vested into those things, they're keeping a stronger sense of identity of, local identity. And I think that's really cool that we're seeing the opposite of that, because I think one of the things that people don't realize is when you're into these larger social movements and things like that, there's still there's a cost. You're giving up part of your, autonomy to another larger group or a larger belief system. And so seeing the reverse side of that I think is really cool. And because we're doing this research now, we're seeing a longer spectrum of different ways of an identity during the late Archaic and Woodland period in the Southeast. And it's my dissertation topic, so I think it's really interesting. But I think that's, some of the things that this is a mystery. Why weren't they joining these other social movements? What kept them from deciding to join it, or were they excluded by the people that were doing Poverty Point and Hopewell traditions? And so this is a good mystery that I would love to solve, and I wish people would get interested in, is why are they not a part of it? What does that look like, not being a part of it, but still having some type of understanding of what's going on in those things to, adopt certain technologies, but change them to their local traditions? And I think those are some great mysteries, and, that I think a lot of people can get interested in without, going, oh, they built midden mounds because a lost civilization taught them how to throw away things.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm wearing a hat because thank you to, your name has disappeared. Thank you to Marcus Green for the super chat. So I wear my hat for 5 minutes more. I was wearing it for 5 minutes there, but nobody could see me. But yes, I think there's a lot of important points there. Several of which were brought out in the chat that you can't see, which is
your audio is messing up.
My
for me
audio is
again.
still messing up.
It's your hat. You did the hat again.
Is it better now?
It's slightly better.
So it has something
Is
to
your
do with this
microphone on the
headset.
top of your thing or
Well,
something?
so I think it's probably better for you. It's not as issue with that, because I for the Zoom I'm using this mic. For the live stream, I'm using this mic, my fancier, nicer mic. And so I think that, when I change the headset, that's a problem. I have to look into this. I need to buy a headset or something. Someone's give me enough tips to buy a headset that I can put behind. Then I can wear the hat while chatting. That'd be awesome. And then meanwhile, my cat has come in and rudely opened up the shades. And yes, as somebody noticed, it very rarely has sunshine in Wales. But since there's only one room in my fucking house that has good internet, this is the only room I can do live streaming or zooming in. And it's exactly where the sun is coming in right now. Tavro, do you want to close the shades for me? He doesn't want to close the shades for me. So, okay, so a lot of really good points there. I think we already sort of hit on some of them about how there's different ways that some people are zigging and different ways that some people are zagging. And I think that that's really important for people to get across and to understand how we can study this kind of progressivism, let's say, in the development of new technologies and different social organizations, but we can also study the conservatism of different groups that choose not to go in those directions. And it's really cool to see you doing this.
Yeah. One of the big things
yeah.
is that we've been kind of talking about is this kind of sense of that it may be, thinking about like anarchy, like these people that are coming in with Poverty Point and Hopewell have power. And if you don't want to give up your power to things like that, thinking about, these are the anarchists of the time, and that they're not wanting to have people that have power over them. And so that's one of the kind of lenses I've been looking at lately of kind of thinking about, which has, modern social science or sociology and things like that adding into archaeology. So
yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. And I think it's also a good example. When we teach archaeological theory and the history of archaeology, it's important to understand the missteps we've made. And one of the big missteps has been just identifying tool types with cultural groups, right? And so we talked just earlier, I talked about reduction and how there's examples where it doesn't look like that. But these are examples where sometimes tool types or behavioral patterns that manifest themselves in the archaeological record, they do indicate a declaration, not a declaration, that's the wrong word, but a declaration of identity. This is who we are because we act and perform and do these things with these kind of objects. And so it's important to recognize that the archaeological record is really, really complicated. And it's why you need archaeologists who actually are trained in the history of archaeology to recognize where these kind of things can apply and where they don't, to understand the context within which this stuff is found. And I think that that's really important to get across here. There was one question that you could, oh, sorry, do you want to go on? Yeah, add to that.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons, like I personally, I study in like conferences or something when I'm trying to express my work. I say I study the Fushmaline archaeological culture, but the way I'm really looking at it are these different communities that were probably even diverse from themselves in each group. So I don't use it that way, but without understanding the history of what is Fushmaline culture, it's really hard to really do these more in-depth questions. And so that's why it takes people who are, experienced and know not just the things they're looking at currently, but the ways that it's been looked at since 1951 is the first time that they've written about this. Well, actually 1941, but 1951 was a kind of complete
I'm not laughing at you. Somebody just said that they need to see a video, if there isn't one already, with David Miano and Flint Dibble. Please and thank you, unless you don't like him. I love David Miano. He's fantastic. I think he's supposed to do something for this event, but he didn't actually tell us what. So I don't know if it's on the schedule, but hopefully he does release something with the hashtag Real Archaeology. And I was on David Miano's channel like a year and a half ago. Go search for it. We talked about Atlantis. It was the first live stream on YouTube I ever did on his channel. So I'm a big fan of David Miano. He also recorded a short cameo for a video that I've been producing since I joined YouTube over a year ago. I've been trying to produce this video and it hasn't come out yet. Let me get one question from the chat, then I'm going to get Tavros and show everybody my cat, and then we should shut this down so I can have an hour break before I talk with Ken Fetter. Somebody asked, how do you identify what a Gary point is?
So these are based off particular types of attributes with the projectile, with the hafted biface. So a Gary point is usually considered a contracting stem. So if you see on this here, you have the two shoulders, so you have the tip and it comes out into the triangle. Those are the two shoulders, and below that is you have the stem, and so the stem is contracting. So that's one way, with a contracting stem. Then usually the overall length of the projectile point. There's of course ranges in this, but that's another. And then it has weak shoulders, so it doesn't have very prominent shoulders. It has very weak shoulders. Sorry, my cat Jasper, it keeps getting in front of the computer screen. It has very weak shoulders, so the shoulders aren't very prominent, and so that's another way to identify it. But those are usually the main characteristics: are weak shoulders, the length of the projectile point, and a contracting stem that either has a straight U-shaped or V-shaped base.
This is Tavro. Tavro is an archaeological cat. He is... Oh, Tavro! Ah, he got caught in my cable. Sorry, Tavro. He's from the site of Knossos on Crete. He is from the Labyrinth. He was a site cat there, a feral cat, and we adopted him and brought him here to Wales.
Oh, wow.
So he has archaeology in him. So, okay, yeah, he's short from Minotavros, so the Minotaur. Jamie, I will do some Q&A tomorrow in the middle of my 5-hour live stream. I'm doing an Ask Me Anything on Ask Historians, r/Ask Historians. I'll be doing an AMA. It's not a text limit. It's a 10 seconds between chat messages, because otherwise I can't follow them. And on top of it, if trolls don't show up, maybe I'll change that. We'll see. I expected more trolls. I won't lie, given what's been happening in my life. But they've been okay. Plus, to be honest, the 10-second limit helps me. If people are spamming the live chat, I can't read through it already. I couldn't follow all the different chat things because there's just so many questions and comments and discussions going on in there. Everything's good. So I think that covers it. This is our introduction to real archaeology. Make sure you check out Actual Archaeology with JT. That is his YouTube channel. He's just started it, and it's starting to get growing, and I think it's going to be a huge success as he really learns the ropes of YouTube, one video at a time, as we all know it takes. And
you
just put it in there?
I actually put
Good.
my link
Yeah.
to my channel there.
Good.
If y'all want to subscribe. Like
Subscribe.
I said, I'll be talking about mounds, Native American mounds in North America. But yeah, getting used to YouTube is definitely something I was not prepared for, and it's exciting and both extremely time consuming.
It is. Learning YouTube is a lot of work, and it's something that people just, they're like, and it's just like, no, sorry, doing this kind of stuff takes a lot of work and a lot of expertise and a lot of experience, and so it's not something that you get ready with immediately. It takes time and energy and passion, and so so make sure you subscribe to JT. Thank you. I have another student in the audience. You're awesome. Jan, I'm guessing, maybe Jan, but I think you're Jan. But thank you, Jan. And we'll see everybody. I'll see everybody here who wants to join in an hour and a half. I have Dr. Kenny Fetter coming on. We're going to discuss pseudoarchaeology. In many ways, he is like the OG master of studying pseudoarchaeology. So between me and him, I think we're going to have a lot to talk about, so I hope to see some of you back in an hour and a half. That link should be available now on my live stream segment of my YouTube, and I'll post it on my community post. Otherwise, go check out everything there is for real archaeology, because this weekend's going to be off the wall. All right. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you all. Thanks for having me, Flint. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.